So welcome to all the participants to our webinar for tips for short riders on big bikes, not only short riders, particularly for all the riders on big bikes. And it's going to be hosted by our company, Yacht Tours. We are based out of India. So the meeting flow is going to be first of all, we'll give you a bit introduction about our company, and then we'll move over and give a bit small introduction about Jocelin. After that, we'll be heading over with our presentation with the tips and techniques for the seminar itself. After that, once the presentation gets over, we'll be opening up the floor for question and answers, and that will be done through our chat box. So if you have any questions, we would want you to keep it to yourself. Once the chat box is open officially, you can type in the questions, and Jocelyn will be more than willing to answer those questions for you. So we'll keep a big slot, a good amount of slot for regarding time with question and answers. So first of all, my name is Preet, and a little bit introduction about our company. So we are basically based out of Delhi. Our company is called Yacht Tours. We are a bulk tour operator company, and we have presence in more than 4 countries. Our head office is in Delhi, India, and the other head office is in China, Beijing. We have been catering to 16 plus superbiking clubs in India and China both, and various brands of dealership in India and China, like BMW, Ducati, you have Honda, Triumph, Yamaha. So you can see few pictures from the previous tours that we have done for the dealerships and for the various biking clubs. Apart from that, we have been extensively doing motorcycle tours in India, whether it be Leh Ladakh circuit, covering the Khardungla, which is the world's highest motorable pass. You have the Spiti circuit, Northeast, luxury Rajasthan tour, the Palace tours. And apart from that, we have been conducting various worldwide off-road enduro tours. So if you can see the pictures, we have done tours in Indonesia, Bali, Java. You have Vietnam, New Zealand. New Zealand we just did in last year, 2019, with a group from India. We have done South Africa, Europe. We have tied up with few adventure parks where we can train with our best trainers that we have for different brands. And then you have Russia, China, and Central Asia. Now, what we specialize in are training programs that we conduct in India. So we will be conducting a lot of training programs due to COVID-19, the pandemic. For this 2020, a lot of training programs and tours are actually postponed to the next year or to the later half of the year. So, but we'll be planning to conduct off-road training programs, come tours with Jocelyn in India. So we will be updating you all on this. And apart from that, we'll be doing the Leh Ladakh circuit, the Spiti circuit, and a lot of jungle and hardcore enduro tours in India itself. So let me get on to the first speaker. That is our guest speaker, Jocelin Snow. I'm sure that everyone knows Jocelin. She is a huge star among bikers, worldwide. Everyone knows her about her. She's a certified BMW International Off-Road instructor, a GS Trophy competitor. She has a huge amount of riding experience. She's been riding since 1982 and covered more than 750,000 kilometers. Adventure rider and traveler. And apart from that, she's a very enthusiastic businesswoman. I'm sorry about that. So she owns 2 companies, Snow Science and Crazy Wraps in the United States. Without much further ado, let's move on with the presentation. And I would like Jocelyn to now take over and begin with a bit about her history and about her experience regarding the biking and how she got into it, and what she's all doing in the biking industry right now. So Jocelyn, over to you.
Thank you, Preet. Well, I just want to say thank you everybody for joining. This is such a treat for me. I really appreciate you all tuning in. I've been so excited to talk with you all and share stories, and I can't wait to hear your questions. So make sure that you don't forget to write them down so you can ask them at the end. this slide is tough for me because it's not really about me. This is about you guys, and I just want to share everything that I can to help you improve your riding and your confidence and make your adventures much more pleasurable. But I guess we can talk a tiny bit about this. So as he said, I've been riding for many years, and in all types of riding and racing and competition. So from dirt riding and trail riding to flat track and hare scrambles and even drag racing. Back in early 2000, I was a pro road racer. I guess that's that picture up in the corner there. And I road raced AMA 250 GP. And this is back when it was mostly all boys. So, I used to try to tuck my hair up in the helmet and just kind of roll with the guys and sneak through it. After a while, I feel like I kind of had gone through all the different types of riding, and I was looking for something new and exciting. And I had always wanted to try adventure riding. But the bikes are so big, and I was very intimidated, as maybe some of you guys are as well. And so I didn't do adventure riding until just 3 years ago when I got my first adventure bike. So let's just get started. Next slide, please. Okay, small riders, big bikes. And I understand that that's what we're talking about, but I have met some people, guys and gals, that are very tall. They're giants to me. And they're still intimidated by these bikes. So regardless of their height, it's not really all about if you can get your feet on the ground. The bikes are intimidating. So when you're a shorter or smaller rider with a heavy bike and a tall bike, obviously that can make it even worse. These bikes, we got, what's your average seat height and weight? It depends on what bike, of course, but they tend to be around 37 inches, plus or minus. Like the V-Strom is like 835 if you want to go millimeters, we could do that. The BMW 650 starts in at like 800 millimeters to 820, depending on the bike. So, that being said, it's difficult to get 1 foot down, sometimes, never mind two. And if you're tall enough to get both feet down, the bike just is a heavy bike, and it's very intimidating. So as you can see here, there's so many riders that don't get into adventure riding due to the size, and that was what I did. And the whole reason that I do webinars like this and training and my social media platforms, they're really about showing other people that you too can get into adventure riding, and you can be confident, and you can be amazing, and you can ride any bike you want, and you can do whatever you want and ride wherever you want. And that's my message, because I too was intimidated by these bikes, and they're scary when you first get one. I remember going to a trade show, and they had BMW 1200 on display. This bike was beautiful. It was black and gold, and it was just all tricked out with all these cool parts. And I went over to the booth, and I asked if I could sit on the bike, and I got up on the bike, and my feet were dangling like 12 inches from the floor, and I couldn't even get it off the kickstand. I'm sure you guys know what that feels like. And the guy in the booth just looked down at me and said, this is probably too big of a bike for you, so carry on. And I hung my head and walked away. And that was about 5 years ago. I didn't get a bike because I thought I have to get my feet down on the ground in order to ride these things. And then I'm sure some of you have heard the story, but those of you that haven't, what happened one night, I was scrolling through Facebook, and I saw this video with this 12-year-old boy who was golfing at pro level with the pros, and he had only one arm. And it really struck me. I thought, well, here's this guy that his handicap, this little boy, his handicap, he has only one arm, but he wants to golf and he's golfing with the pros. What's my excuse? What's my handicap? So I'm small, I'm short, my handicap with adventure riding. And why can't I overcome it? He did. And it was the next morning that I had made my mind up that I was going to go buy a bike, an adventure bike. Now, I had previously had almost, I think, over 40 motorcycles, dirt bikes, dual sport bikes, supermoto bikes, all of that. But I'm going to tell you, the first dealership I walked into, they didn't want to sell me. I walked up to the GS 1200. I'd never ridden it. I hadn't sat on it, with the exception of that trade show years back. And I want to buy this bike. And they were like, no, we don't want to sell you this bike. So that wasn't helping my confidence any. So what makes the bike so intimidating? They're big, they're heavy, they're expensive as well. I know I still pay for my bikes, and I recently bought a new 1250, and then the first thing I lay it down on the rocks, it's like, oh goodness, and that's frustrating because they're expensive. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So my 3 secrets, all you need to do what I have done, and probably even better, to conquer these bikes, to tame the beast, you need 3 things, in my opinion. Confidence. Confidence is key. I'm sure you've probably heard people say, oh, motocross, these guys, they launch these jumps for stories, they go hundreds and hundreds of feet on these dirt bikes and land. I mean, how do you even do that? What makes you capable the first time to take that jump, that leap? It's about confidence. So it's about 95% mental. If you believe in yourself and you have the confidence, you can do just about anything you want. That is key. And we're going to talk about ways that you can build confidence with the bike. And I'm going to be honest, when I first started adventure riding, I did not have confidence. I put this motorcycle, I had put it in the truck originally. I put this in my garage and went to bed. And the next morning I opened up the garage and I backed up. And this was actually a GS Adventure, my first adventure bike, a GSA. I backed up and I looked at this thing. It was taking up almost the whole garage. It was so big and so wide. And I thought, oh, what have I done? That was a lot of money. Like, what a mistake. How the heck am I going to ride this thing? And I want to share that with you because that's real. I've been there. I upright the bike finally, and I'm looking down at this kickstand, and I'm like, now what? I can't even get the kickstand up. Like, what am I going to do? So again, we'll talk about how to get that confidence, but once you have that confidence, there's no stopping you. So remember, I believe in you. You need to believe in yourself, and we'll build some confidence. We'll talk about some tricks. The next thing is attitude. When you're learning technical adventure riding or perhaps training for the GS trophy, which we'll talk about later, your bike is going to end up on its side. When I was training for the trophy, I had only been riding the adventure bike for 4 months. And my bike was horizontal more than it was vertical. That bike was on the side all the time. And I needed to have the attitude to pick it back up, to put my helmet back on and get back in the ride. And that's so important because when you get frustrated with something, when you start doubting yourself, you're losing those 2 things. You're losing your confidence, you're losing your attitude. It fights you. And after that, it's almost impossible to be successful riding that. Of course, number 3 is balance. Once you have the balance, you've got it. So if you look in the center picture, that's a real deal. That's a 1250 Adventure. All my bikes are standard stock height. They're not lowered. They're not factory low. I don't have low seats. They're stock. I don't do anything special to the bike at all. I come straight from the dealership. That's how I ride it. So this is me trying to just basically stand and balance the bike while I'm talking to some of my friends or students. And that's a real thing. I call that, I named it a dog on a fire hydrant, you know, and the dog just kind of lifts his legs. That's how I feel sometimes, but it works. The idea is just to get the 1 foot on the ground. But I know when you're sitting on the bike, if you go to put your foot down at a stoplight, say, and we just put our foot down, when we have short legs, by the time our foot gets to the ground, the bike is at so much of an angle, it's probably going to keep going over. We've been there. Everybody's been there. Okay. So what you can see in the center picture I do is I slide off the seat. So slide off the seat because the bike, again, balance. The bike needs to stay upright in balance, and I need to get my foot down. So I've got the bike locked in under my knee with my thigh, and at that point, I mean, I can put my hands on my head, I can turn, I can talk to everybody because the bike's in balance and I'm in balance, which then makes me in control. So confidence, attitude, balance. Make yourself a sticker, put it on your bike, memorize it. Remember, take a cab. If you feel like everything's just falling apart while you're on a ride and you need to collect yourself, say, okay, I'm gonna take a cab. Confidence, balance, and attitude. And some of my notes are covered here with this picture. Here we go. Why looking ahead is crucial to shorter riders. That is more important, I think, for us than for a lot of other riders. For instance, I call them outriggers, taller riders with big, long legs. When they get into a situation, they can just put those outriggers down, stop the bike, and catch themselves. I don't have that option, and you may not either. So you always hear like, oh, look ahead, look where you want to go. Let me tell you how important that is for us. The further ahead you look, the more time you have to react to what's coming. We need some time to react to what's coming, to select our line, to look where we want to go, to not go where we don't want to go. And when you're looking down in front of the bike, things are happening so fast that by the time you react, it's too late. You're behind the ball. And it throws us off balance. It throws our bodies off balance. For instance, you didn't see this rock coming because, you know, it's by the time you see it, it's in front of the wheel and you've already hit it and you're already trying to react to it and it's tossed you off balance. And when we're off balance, us smaller riders, the bike is gonna take a nap. So looking ahead is absolutely crucial. I wanna give you an exercise that you can do when we're all done. Take a large wood dowel, similar to like maybe a quarter of a or a half of a broom handle. And balance the dowel on your 2 fingers. And I want you to look at your 2 fingers at the base of the dowel and try to balance it like a circus act. But don't take your eyes off your fingers. And now this is straight in front of the windshield, straight in front of the front fender of the bike. And you'll see that that dowel, that stick, it falls and falls and falls, and you can't get more than a half a second with it balanced. Now, look ahead. So with that dowel on your 2 fingers, look up at the top and don't take your eyes off the top end of that dowel. And before you know it, you got another talent because you can balance that thing for a long time. That's looking ahead. Okay, so select the correct tool. Screwdrivers versus hammers. So this is my big one because when I discovered this, everything changed for me. And I wish I had a bike to show you guys what this is like, but we can pretend. So hammers, everyone hold a hammer. So take your hand out, grab this pen here, and let's pretend it's a hammer. What is a hammer used for? I'm a contractor, so I'll tell you, it's used for bashing, okay? Your handlebars, your bike, you don't want to use a hammer. We use the hammers when we're tense, when we're scared, when we're intimidated by the texture, the terrain that's coming at us. We have this hammer grip. We're all guilty of it, right? You're tense, elbows down, you have the hammer grip, you have plenty of room for fear to come in and hang out right here, and that's how we ride, and that's how we look, and it doesn't usually end well. Screwdrivers. When you're holding a screwdriver is a precision tool. That's what your controls on your bike is, your handlebars. Precision tool. So if you can see in the picture, here's my hammers, here's my precision tool. Watch what it does to my elbows. I've got my hammers, I'm scared. And now I have my precision tools. It's a nice open grip, your elbows are out. These are controls. This isn't, any more than like a computer. You're telling the bike what to do, your clutch, your throttle, your brake. It needs to have a little bit of a finesse. So when you're following your riding buddies and they head down that gnarly track and you're going, oh, crap, 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 and you've got your hammers, stop, take a look, switch them out for screwdrivers. It's a better tool. You'll enjoy it. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, exercises to build confidence. Let me see where I have here. We talked about confidence, attitude, and balance. And I put confidence first because for me, that was my breakthrough. As soon as I had confidence, as soon as I believed in myself, everything came so easy. Just imagine a world where you can jump on any bike you want, any adventure bike you want, your buddy's bike, anything, and have the confidence to just go and do a technical hill climb or something without even thinking. And you can have that. So in order to get there, it does take a little bit of work. I mean, I didn't wake up and have confidence. So one of the things you want to do, let's talk about mounting the bike, uprighting the bike, the kickstand reach. The kickstand's a big deal, I know. Some bikes, of course, are taller than others. If you're on a Royal Enfield, it's a lot easier to reach kickstand. If you're on a GS, that kickstand is in another state. It's in another country. It's so far down there. This is something I would probably have to demonstrate, but what I want to tell you is find your way to do the kickstand. So I'm sure you've seen that YouTube video where the short rider gets to a street light and he bounces off the bike and stands next to the foot peg and swings his right leg around and gets moving when the light turns green. And everybody's like, LOL, that's funny. Well, that's real. I've done it. We've had to do it. And it's a wonderful way to start and stop the bike. I do that all the time. As far as the kickstand, one thing that I do, and it's going to be tricky to explain, I'll do my best. I probably am going to do a YouTube video demonstration so you can see it. At the seam of the seat, where the top meets the side of the seat, the bike's on the kickstand, you're going to walk over to it and you're going to upright this bike. I take that seam of the seat and I put that about at the center of my thigh. Not to the knee, not up to the crotch where you would normally jump onto the seat. Just to the center of the thigh with my left leg bent. Press into the seat, hold on to a handlebar with one hand, maybe a rack or the end of the seat or the tail with the left hand, with the right hand. And then straighten your leg, straighten your left leg. And that pushes the bike upright and in balance, and it looks like that picture we saw earlier. And at that point, you just pop onto the seat, slide off onto the right side. We got a situation though. The kickstand's still down, and it's way down there. Practice this maybe in a nice grassy area. So now I want you to hold on to the bars with your screwdrivers, look ahead, breathe. We're only on our right foot. We have the dog on the fire hydrant here, and we need to reach for that kickstand. I want you to lift your right foot so there's no feet on the ground and the bike is just sitting there stationary, balanced, and do what I call the lift and dive. Lift the right foot, dive for the kickstand, flip the kickstand up, put the right foot back down, and you're done. It sounds ridiculous, but once you learn it, it's great. And you look so cool at a gas station when everybody's at the gas station and they're all trying to get their bikes up, and you could do that thing where you're on the bike and you do the 1, 2, 3, and you get it up, and then you ask your buddy to kick your kickstand up, you know. Or you can try this. Just try it. And if you need help with that explanation, if you want a demo, let me know. I'll make a video. The one-hand touch around the bike. This is important. You just bought this new adventure bike. You're like, wow, you know, I can't figure out how to ride this thing. I'm so scared of it. Tame it. Okay, it's a machine and it will do everything that you want it to do. So the one-hand touch around the bike motor is off. You're balancing it on a flat area. The first thing you want to do, start with one hand on your gas tank, on your fuel tank, and this hand behind your back. Find the balance of the bike. From this point, you're going to go all the way around the bike, but never look at your hand, ever. That's the looking ahead I talked about. So with your hand on the gas tank, you're going to look at the left grip, and you're not going to take your eyes off the left grip, and this hand's going to move to the left grip. Walk your body around. You're going to look up maybe the windscreen, maybe the front fender, maybe the headlight, depending on the bike. Don't take your eyes off it, and then reach for it. Walk around. Work your way around the bike over and over, making laps. Again, don't look at your hand. And you'll find the balanced bike. This is actually building confidence. It's building confidence with you. You're building a relationship with this bike, and you guys are going to get along a lot better. Once you get done, you understand how this works, and you're telling yourself, I am in control of this beast. Okay? The blindfold ride. It's exactly what you think it is. It's one of the first things I do when I coach people. Blindfold. Obviously, you want to do this in a safe area. You want to do this with a friend or a buddy, and some sort of a siren or a horn or, you know, a megaphone to warn the rider, because you never know where you're going. Put a blindfold on while you're sitting on your bike and move to a target location approximately 100, 200 yards away. You're probably going, she's crazy. What? Why would you do this? Because it's important for us to be in touch with all of our senses. So the first thing I want to take away is your eyesight. When you can't see where you're going, everything else kicks in. You start paying attention to the bars, to the vibration, to the feel of the bike, the load on the motor. You're listening, you're hearing, you're feeling. And it's pretty amazing how much better you will get as you continue. You may tip it over a few times. As soon as you put the blindfold on, it's extremely difficult to tell where forward is. I get it. You have your handlebars here, but you'll see. You have no idea that this is forward, this is straight. As soon as you put that blindfold on, you may think that this is straight. And it takes a little bit of practice. But before long, you know, for instance, let's say you have a cone 200 yards away and it's across the grass into some dirt, maybe a little bit of gravel and back onto the grass. Before long, you'll be able to feel the bike on the grass, on the dirt, on the gravel, on the grass. I must be there. Stop the bike, put my foot down. And before you know it, you're mastering that. Then when you get your eyesight back, everything falls into play and you have so much more confidence in the bike, and you can say to yourself, I can balance this bike with one hand. I can ride this bike blindfolded. I am the boss of this bike. the clutch powered climb roll. It's a terrible name, but I don't really know what to call it. What I do with this is I find a very slight incline. It can be a hill, it can be a board, it can be a driveway, just something that has a bit of an incline to the front wheel. And I'm going to stand next to the bike with the bike running, and I'm going to pull the clutch in, and I'm going to put it into first gear. And just using the clutch, I'm without any throttle, I'm going to motor the bike up the incline, and it helps you really feel the sweet spot in the clutch where it works and when the clutch engages. And then I'm going to pull the clutch in slightly and let the bike roll back down. And we're going to do this over and over and over and over again. And I know, because it's going to start to give you that confidence, because this is such a huge machine, but I can take this bike for a walk up and down this incline. And it just makes it easier and easier and easier. And of course, you're learning the clutch control and control of the bike at the same time. Now, let's go to the next slide, please. Taking off from stationary. This is huge. This is huge. You all can go home and try this. As soon as we hang up, go try this. So what you do is, that's a little extreme, me hanging off the bike, but basically 1 foot on the ground, bike running, in first gear, clutch in, looking ahead, screwdrivers, breathing. What you want to do is stand up on the pegs and then move the bike. So what we normally do is we've let the clutch out and the bike starts going, and then we get up on the seat, and then we get up on the pegs while the bike is moving. And it's easier, of course. But once you've mastered this, taking off from stationary, it really boosts your confidence with the bike. So what I'm telling you is that you're moving, that you're standing before the bike is moving. It's amazing. And you get better and better at it. And then, you're with a whole bunch of guys or gals and you're out riding, everybody stops, has a conversation, and you go to take off and you stand up and then you move and everybody's like, whoa, that's cool. Okay, taking the bike for a walk. This is a huge confidence builder. One hand on the clutch, left hand on the clutch and the throttle, the bike is running, the bike is in gear, the other hand behind your back or supporting your wrist, and only under power of the clutch, you're moving the bike forward. Practice it, letting the clutch out, walking next to the bike while the bike is moving forward, then pulling the clutch back in. Eventually, get yourself so you can walk into a circle, and then you can master the figure eight. It's just building that confidence and reminding yourself, your subconscious, that I'm the boss of this bike. I am in full control. I took this bike for a walk one-handed, and it did everything I asked it to do because it was in balance and I had confidence. All right. Thoroughly understanding the bike, the settings, the modes, the suspension, leave no mystery. That's a big deal. When you really understand your machine, that helps you with confidence. For instance, jump on a bike you've never been on before. There's buttons for ride modes and suspension. You've never used them. You don't know what this is for. And you're going to go ride this bike. You're not even, maybe you don't even know what the blinkers are. It's very intimidating. And we just want to just get rid of anything that's intimidating because we're going to get that confidence. So whatever bike you select, I recommend you take the time to really learn the bike, understand it, understand the mechanics of it, understand if it has ride modes, the different ride modes, how to use them, understand the suspension. I mean, YouTube's a big deal. I've graduated YouTube in all kinds of different subjects, but get on there, go to your dealer, ask them if you can hang out while they're doing the oil change, and pay attention and learn it. once you understand all of the different parts of the motorcycle and how to use the controls fully and how the suspension works completely, you've just gained so much more confidence with this bike. Let me just move something here. Oh yeah, small steps. So again, eat an elephant. So how do you eat an elephant? Well, in little tiny bites, and that's what we're doing here. All these little things, a little at a time. And you want to start small because it's important that you have successes. So, the blindfold ride, take the bike for a walk, do all these little things little by little by little, and it will get better and better. You will become more confident. You will become a better rider. You become more in control, and the bike becomes less intimidating. And eventually it's like, no problem. I'll ride whatever you want me to ride. So it's all about small steps. Next slide, please. Okay, advanced off-road techniques for short riders. I gotta move some of this. Here we go. So, can't dab areas. Yeah, this gets me every time. Just yesterday, I was riding with my buddies, and we went through some technical terrain and mud. And we got into this big rise where the road was rutted out on both sides, and there was a big crown in the center that we had to ride on. And it was rocky and muddy at the same time, and these guys were able to toss a foot down and to get off balance. I'm watching them, and they slam their left foot and catch it and get the bike going. And I'm going, oh gosh, we have one way to get through this. It's technique, confidence, okay, attitude, okay, balance, I got this, got my screwdrivers, I'm breathing, here we go. And there's no dabbing. There's just no dabbing. And I mean, you've seen short riders where they've got to put a foot down, they come completely off the seat and they stab their foot down and they bounce all the way back up onto the foot pegs, and that's possible in some cases. But yesterday that was not the case. So I have to ride that crown in the road. This had to be maybe 70 feet long. And I have to ride that without coming off the crown and falling into this mud hole. So I got my screwdrivers on board, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to dab, so I just put that right out of my mind. Don't look for a place to dab. Don't look right. Don't look left. We don't have that option. With the screwdrivers, the next thing you want to do is, in my opinion, is have a very, very light grip on the bars. It's key. So you've heard me tell people probably before, you get to pick. You can have butterflies or you can have baby chicks, whichever you prefer. Put imaginary baby chicks in your hands. Hang on to those bars. Don't squish them. Don't kill them. Very, very, very light grip. Because when we go across that crown, or you see me ride the power pole, the telephone poles, or narrow bridges or anything, and we're really tense and really stiff, it's happening. We're just going to twitch. We're going to be nervous. We're going to pull the bike off into a rut, off a narrow bridge, into a river. I've been there, done that. I don't want to do it anymore. So put those imaginary, whatever it is that you don't want to crush, in your hands. Have a very light grip. Obviously, we're looking ahead like we talked about before. And before you know it, you're riding straight across this really narrow bump all the way to the end, and your friend's looking over like, wow, you didn't even put a foot down. Well, you can't, so of course not. Okay, and sand. How to ride the sand. So sand's kind of a big deal, especially with a 550-pound motorcycle. And I hated sand. Hated sand. That's a strong word. So I really hated sand. I was on the ground all the time until I finally figured this out. Light grip. I almost went drunk with my body, like sleepy. Okay. Very, very light grip, very sleepy, looking ahead. We want to look down at the ruts. We want to look in front of the bike, just look into the horizon. What's down there doesn't matter. The bike's going to take care of it. And before you know it, it's like water skiing. If anyone's water skied, you're just carving through the sand effortlessly. Why didn't anyone ever tell me? Don't use the clutch. Keep a positive throttle. Loosen up on the bars. Relax. Relax? You want me to relax? I'm 5'1" and I'm about to get into this sand pit and I'm going to crash. And no, we get the confidence. We get the attitude. We get the balance. And it all comes together when you believe that and you believe in yourself. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Wow, are we already at the last slide? That went fast. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the GS Trophy because I get asked a lot of questions about it. Those of you who aren't familiar, the GS Trophy, in my opinion, I would describe it best as like the Olympics of motorcycles. So each participating country has a team of 3 riders, and they're joined with 1 journalist, each team. So a team of 4 for each country, and they all meet together in some, out in the middle of nowhere country, and they compete. It's not a race. The riding that's involved in the GS Trophy is very technical. It's usually quite slow. And many of the challenges that the riders face are not even on a bike. So basically how it works is it's maybe 7, 8, 9 days, depending on how it was. When I went, it was 2018. I was on the women's international team. So there will be 1, sometimes 2 women's teams that compete head-to-head equally with the men's teams. Throughout the days, we had a route that we traveled, and randomly we'd be riding together, and all of a sudden there would be a special test. And the special test may be something like you have a GPS in your hand and you have to run on foot with your team, and you have to locate these different coordinates and put together a message from a bunch of random signs. Or maybe it's how fast can your team put a tent together, or maybe you can see some pictures down here in the corner that's I think Team USA working their way through a technical climb, or maybe you have to tow a bike or ride 2 up. But it's really about teams. So if you've never done the GS Trophy, if you've never participated, this is what I would say on how you want to do it. First of all, I think you should try. So you want to check with your country. Each country has their own qualifiers, and it's every other year. So the qualifier should be coming up this next year, 18, 19, 21. And compete. Even if you think you don't have a chance, just compete, because you're going to learn a lot from it. To get yourself ready, I would say you definitely want to have some slow speed control skills, which you're going to learn when you're practicing your confidence, attitude, and your balance. Being able to turn the bike in a tight area by counterbalancing, and definitely some fitness. So the trophy it's a challenging both mentally and physically, and I would say it's a little bit more teamwork than it is necessarily riding skill. So you need to remember that you're going to want to be able to work together as a team. And once you've made it on the team, then it's a mystery. We don't even know where the next GS Trophy is going to be. So if that question's about to come up, I don't know yet, but I hope I get to go. When I qualified for the trophy, I actually had no idea it was going to happen. Again, I think I mentioned to you, I had only had an adventure bike for just a few months. And we had our qualifier for the US in California. And I don't even know why I went, because I didn't really have the confidence, but I thought, it would be cool to check it out. And if nothing else, maybe I'll learn something. And I got pretty lucky, and I ended up making the finalists for the women. And I thought, awesome, I'm going to go to Mongolia. But that's not how it went. They're like, no, you have to go compete with women from all over the world down in South Africa, and you have to make a women's international team. So, okay, off we went to South Africa and competed again. And I think we had 23 absolutely amazing women riders. They were so talented. But a lot of it was believing in yourself. It was attitude. What I saw happening with a lot of the ladies is, the bike would end up upside down or taking a nap, and they would get frustrated and with themselves and just like, oh, I can't do this. And then they just went downhill from there. So it was about attitude. You pick the bike up and you smile and you say, okay, well, guess what? I made it from here to here. I've got this. Now I know what not to do. Get back on it and get going again. And with the right attitude, which is what I finally got, then I ended up making the team. And the following year, BMW, it's like a all expenses paid riding trip. You all fantasize. Don't say you don't. You all fantasize about, oh, can I just want to ride my motorcycle and not have to pay and travel the world for free. We all want that. And that's what this did. BMW gave you a bike, brand new bike to ride with 10 miles on it, kilometers, gear, rally jacket, pants, gloves, helmets, the whole setup, right down to a whole duffel bag full of casual apparel. They paid your airfare, they paid your food, they paid your hotel, everything. They gave you a tent, and you go and you ride with people from all over the world that enjoy the same thing you enjoy. It is, when they say it's an experience of a lifetime, it is exactly that. It's unbelievable. And as soon as you get there and you're meeting new people, the camaraderie, the friends you make, and from all over the world, you forget that it's a competition. Everybody is already a winner, and it's just a whole bunch of fun riding. After the trophy, then I was able to build up my social media, thanks to you guys, many of you. And BMW thought, okay, well, let's invite her to be a host for the next trophy. And so I was able to go back. Now, the GS Trophy is a once in a lifetime opportunity, because you're really, according to the rules, you're only allowed to go to the trophy and compete once. So it's kind of sad when it's over. It's like a big event you plan for, you're all excited, and then it's over. And you're not going to be able to do it again. So this was a super treat for me. I'm so grateful that they asked me to go, and I got to go back this time, not as a competitor, just to enjoy it and be the host. So one thing that the trophy can do is it can open up a lot of doors. You can get sponsors send you free products, and that makes adventure riding a lot easier and a lot more affordable as well. So I want to stop talking, because I am just really excited to hear your questions. I want to hear from you guys. I'm sure you're tired of listening to me drone on, but if for any reason we don't get to all the questions, don't hesitate to send me a message. I want to make sure everyone gets answered. So you can reach out to me on Facebook, Jocelin Snow. I have 2 pages, or Instagram, Jocelin Snow. So please don't hesitate to stay in touch. Okay, I give you the floor.
Thanks, Jocelyn. That was very appreciated, and just appreciate everything that you have talked about. So let's open the question and answers, and we'll have our first question now from Saru. What is the best bike to learn biking on for a 5 feet 2 inch girl?
So the best bike to learn riding on for 5 feet 2. So you're a half an inch taller than me. You're so lucky. No, but it's intimidating. If you've never ridden before, so I'm not sure how much riding experience you have, but if you've never ridden before and you're thinking about starting to learn how to ride, then I recommend, again, remember, we're eating an elephant with small bites. So I recommend a smaller bike, a dirt bike. I'm not sure all the models, if they're similar to what we have here in the US, but a smaller CC. Yes, and probably something that's going to help you build your confidence where maybe you can touch the ground with 2 feet, like a CRF 100, something that is plastic dirt bike. So when it hits the ground, you pick it up, you pick it up, you pick it up. Not necessarily a $25,000, 570-pound machine to start with. Now, if your question was more which bike is a good bike to start on, I'm already a rider, but I want to get into adventure riding, then I'm going to say don't let anyone or anything discourage you from getting the bike that you want. Don't let a salesman tell you, no, that's too much bike for you. Don't let a friend tell you, no, no, you don't want that bike. You want this bike. Don't let the bike tell you, oh gosh, it's too bad. I can't even touch the ground. I shouldn't get this. You get the bike that you want, the bike that you want to ride, that fits the type of riding that you want to do. If you want to travel the world, well, you better get a bike with a big tank. So probably something similar to a GS Adventure. And then that's fine. Don't be intimidated. Figure out how to tame the beast. Do the steps that I gave you. So my message to you is find the bike that fits you. I'm not going to tell you which bike to get because it needs to call to you. You'll know it when you find it because you'll believe that, yeah, this is it. You'll feel it in your gut that this is the bike I need to start with.
Mike wants to ask you, with the clutch powered climb roll, when rolling down, you mentioned to keep the clutch all in. But do I have to slightly use the brake or just let it roll? What if it goes too fast down?
Great question, Mike. And I apologize if I wasn't clear. It's very difficult for me to explain it. I'm kind of a doer and just show you. So when it's clutch all the way in, so free roll, because yeah, that bike is gonna come down that hill and take off without you. So it's about a controlled climb and a controlled descent. What you'll find is while you're standing next to the bike, it's running, it's in first gear, you've started to let the clutch out, the bike is starting to go, the front wheel's going up the incline, you're not even all the way up, you're at the midpoint. You can get to that spot in the clutch where you can just hold the bike right there. Full control. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're practicing it, because you're taming the beast. So the more you let that clutch out, the more the bike starts to climb up the incline. And now it's time to back it up. You'll find the spot. It's just a little bit in. It starts to roll. I need to catch it. Let it out a little bit more. I need to catch it. I'm off balance. A little bit out and bring it back down. Before you know it, you're climbing and coming down, up and down. You're in control of the bike. The bike's in balance. So yes, that was a great question. You do not want to just pull the clutch in. It's coming down and then you're going to go, oh my gosh, that Jocelin Snow, she just caused me to tip my bike over. So thank you for the question, Mike. I appreciate it.
All right, Adil wants to ask you, I ride a street twin off-road and while I try to leave my wrist and hand loose, I can leverage by grabbing the tank with my knees as it's slow, related to an adventure bike. What's your advice on that?
Okay, one more time. I want to make sure I understand the question fully.
He rides a street twin off-road, and while I try to leave my wrists and hands loose, I can't leverage by grabbing the tank with my knees as it's too low, relative to an adventure bike. So he's not able to grab his tank with his knees because it's not similar to an adventure bike. a
right?
street twin off-road.
Right.
So what's your
So,
advice on that?
so what I'm understanding then is because of the shape of the bike, when you take a loose grip on the controls, it feels like you're not going to be in control of the bike. It feels like the bike is going to do something and toss you off because you can't grab the bike with your knees. What I want to say to you is that loose grip on the bars, those screwdrivers, you know, that control you have on the bars with a nice, loose, relaxed grip is going to hopefully help you be more in control with your controls, more in control with your throttle, more in control with your clutch, more in control with your brakes. There's no sudden harsh movements. So really, you don't need to grab the tank with your knees because you're in balance on the bike and the bike is in balance and you're in control. If you're in some pretty technical terrain, like let's say you're hill climbing and it's a steep hill and you're trying to do the loose grip on the bars, but you can't grab the tank and the bike feels like it's just going to ride out from underneath you, then perhaps your body position is in the wrong place. So we're climbing this steep hill, we've got this loose grip, we need to be way forward. We almost want to bring our feet on the front of the foot pegs as the bike starts the incline. And so we're again in balance. The bike's like this and we're like this. Here's my picture, as opposed to, you know, we're like this and we're in balance and I can be really loose and in control. There are times when you need to grab those handlebars, don't get me wrong, and with everything you got, that does happen. But keeping a loose grip on the bars is going to help you relax. It's going to help you breathe. It's going to keep you from getting fatigued. Now, when we're 5'1", we're 5'2", we're 5 foot whatever, when we get exhausted, just any obstacle becomes almost impossible because we're our worst enemy. I just want to touch on something because you made me think of this. So if you take a penny and you drop it on the ground when we're done, just stand in your living room and drop your penny on the ground while you're wearing all your gear and bend over and pick the penny up. And then when you're done, ask yourself, did I just hold my breath? Because that's what we do when we're riding the bike. We get to technical terrain, we get to a hill climb, we're holding our breath and we have this really tight grip on the bike and we're getting exhausted. And by the time we get through the technical terrain, we're, you know, and it's like, oh, and now there's another hill climb or there's some more rocks I have to ride. Or it's like, I'm exhausted. Everything is killing me. So that's because we're not riding relaxed. We're not riding confident. We're not riding in control of the bike. So, and then it's possible if you're not able to keep a loose grip on the bars and you feel like, you know, there's just not a balance point on this bike, maybe that's not the bike for you. Maybe that's not the best adventure bike to fit your body and your riding style. So it's each to his own. But thank you for the question. That's a great question.
All right. Rachel wants to ask you, hi, in relation to the kickstand issue, I got a great tip to put the kickstand up first and then get on the bike and move off, similar to your suggestion earlier. I have only been doing this on a lighter weight dirt bike. Is there a reason I couldn't use the same technique with a bigger adventure bike?
Great question, Rachel. And that is actually a technique that I do a lot. I will put the handlebars in full lock, put the kickstand up, and get my foot up over onto the bike, get up and go. So the kickstand first. However, let's say I'm taking you for a ride and we're gonna go up to Alaska and we have our pannier boxes and our top box. You need to have your tent and your sleeping bag and your cooking gear. We need tools That has to be on their first aid kit, some extra water, some extra fuel. Now, how are you going to get your leg up over all that? You can sometimes, push it through the seat, but now we're going to get on, let's say, a standard height GS 1200, 1250. It's not possible to do that. It's not possible to pick the kickstand and swing your leg over and get onto the bike. And that would be when I guess what I want to say is I have several different ways that I mount the bike and I deal with the kickstand. And it really depends, what bike am I riding? What kind of terrain am I trying to conquer? Where am I? What's the incline like? What do I have on my bike? What type of luggage? What's going on? And it changes. So sometimes it's the kickstand mount, left foot up onto the thing, jump over, dive for the kickstand to get it up. Sometimes it's put the kickstand up first and do exactly what you said. But if I have a freighted bike, what I will usually do, fully loaded bike, I will put the kickstand up, stand next to the bike, put my left foot on the left peg, look ahead, power the bike off, and as the bike's moving, stand up on that peg and swing my right foot up and over all my luggage. When I go to stop, I swing my right foot back around. I'm side standing on the bike on one peg on one side. And as the bike starts to slow down, I just bounce off. With a fully loaded bike, but again, when the bike is in balance, it doesn't weigh a thing. So remember that. But that's great. So these are just my ways on dealing with the kickstand, and I am so excited that you have your ways too, and I think that's great. And just keep an open mind that maybe you want to add some more tricks to that kickstand technique or getting the bike moving with different bikes, depending on, because if you only do that way and then next weekend you go and ride and you have to freight your bike up with all this luggage, you're going to go, great, now what do I do? And it will become a struggle. So thank you for your question.
All right, Mike wants to ask, when maximum steering, I can't quite reach the clutch, short arms, tiny hands, what's the tips?
I've been there. I know what you're talking about. So in very tight steering, like say this way, full lock, that clutch is way far away. Get your body over onto that side of the bike. So if you're sitting square on the seat and you fully lock those handlebars, guess what? I can't reach it either. I have little tiny arms, and that clutch is like, again, in another country. So counterbalancing is key, and I'm glad you brought that up because we have a photo right here at the very bottom where you can see one of my friends from Team USA. He is way over on the bike, pushing the bike down into, now this is on the throttle side, okay? And when he goes the other way, he's got himself way over on the other side. If you get your body in the position, get it off the seat. A seat is for a car. You want to drive a car, sit in the seat, okay? It's just something that we don't even need. Get off the seat, get away from the seat, detach your body from the bike, because balance isn't always in the center. It's not always on the seat. The bike goes like this. So why would I stay on the seat? The balance is going to be opposite that. If you've tried this technique, as you see in the photo below, counterbalancing, you're still having issues reaching the clutch. You can shorten your handlebars with a pipe cutter, take your grips off and take some of the width down. Make your bike, set up your ergonomics on the bike to better fit you, okay? I have a friend that has only one arm, and he rides venture bikes, and he has like a kind of like a half arm here, and he's got his bike set up so that he rides a GSA. I'm not kidding. And he's got it set up special for him so that he can handle the bike. And it's nothing I would be able to ride the way he has all his controls set up, but it works for him. So I highly recommend that you find a way to make your bike work for you after you've already tried to make sure that you're doing all the right things with your body and your balance. But that's a good question. Thank you.
Yeah. Pranav wants to ask you, my query is pertaining to the suspension of the multistratas. Have been trying a few, not been able to hit a sweet spot off the road. I'm 6 feet and weighs around 82 kgs. What's your take on the suspension for multistratas?
So I ride the stock suspension on all the bikes. I have never changed out the suspension on a bike. That doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. It's just because I can't afford to put custom suspension on a bike. I've ridden the Multistrada. I toured Europe with it a couple times. I love that bike. It's beautiful. It's such a, I don't even know if I would want to take it off road. It's such a beautiful bike. But the suspension needs to work with your body and your body weight. So if not, then you have to do like I do when riding the 1250, as you see in the picture. Like that suspension is not set up for a 5'1", 110-pound person. It's just not. But I understand how the suspension is going to work, and I adapt to it. My braking, my throttle, my balance, where I know what the bike is going to do and how the bike is going to react. But with that multistrada, if you're not feeling like it's reacting or working, you've adjusted your compression, your rebound, your damping, you've got it where you think it should be, and it's still not working. Maybe you've consulted a suspension expert. If you're still having some issues, then perhaps an aftermarket suspension. But I wouldn't recommend just going online and buying some aftermarket suspension and putting it on the bike and then hope that it works, because that's a lot of money to spend. I would definitely consult a suspension expert, and they might ask you, well, how much do you weigh? And okay, and how tall are you? All right, and they'll figure it out. That's not enough. They need to ask you, how much do you weigh? How tall are you? What kind of riding are you doing? Because the suspension setup, they might set the guy or gal that's just riding on the street with a group of friends, on a weekend ride. It's not the same suspension that they're probably going to suggest for someone who's riding technical terrain and single tracks and rocks all the time. So I wish I had more information for you on the Multistrada, but I don't want to talk too long about something I'm not completely familiar with, because again, I don't use aftermarket suspension. So yeah, but thank you for the question.
All right. Knuckle wants to ask, on the 1250 or the 1200 GS, do you prefer to ride off-road with the traction control and ABS turned off completely, or just the default Enduro Pro settings? Do you customize the Enduro Pro settings? And if so, what do you set the valves to?
That is an amazing question, Knuckle. Thank you. I don't have really a reason for it, but when I ride off-road, I use Enduro Pro, of course, but I prefer to turn the traction control completely off, and sometimes ABS as well. And BMW would probably go like this for me to saying that, because they have Enduro Pro set up so it works pretty well. For instance, if we go from the pavement and all of a sudden we're on the dirt, this was just yesterday, and I switched 2 clicks and I'm in Enduro Pro. I went from Dynamic to Enduro Pro and we're already riding. I didn't have time or think quickly enough to turn off the traction control or the ABS, and it was fine. But if I personally am going to get busy on a technical trail, I like to have it off, because I know how the bike is going to react all the time. It's not it's not thinking for me. It's not going to do anything that I'm not going to expect. However, let's say we're on a nice wide graded road that's very slippery with a smooth gravel surface. I may want to keep that traction control on because when I'm losing the front end a little or the rear end and one wheel's spinning quicker than the other, I wouldn't mind for that to kind of kick in and save me from making a mistake. Yes, the GS has a way where you can go into the computer and you can fine tune it to better respond with your riding. So for instance, you can adjust how the engine responds, your clutch reaction, the throttle reaction. You can set that all up as a preset in the computer on the bike. It's difficult for me to tell you how I set them because I change it a lot. It really depends what I'm doing. If I want to wheelie the bike on the pavement, I've already preset it up ahead of time before we headed out so that everything responds the way I want it to. But it's something I'm constantly changing, and it depends on where I'm going to be riding. If I'm going on a ride like I was yesterday and I don't know where I'm going and I'm following some other riders, I'm just going to keep everything at the stock setting and again run the Enduro Pro when we get off-road. Thank you for your question. That's a great question.
All right, Adil wants to ask you, fitness is definitely an important part of off-roading, and I'm using the quarantine time to work on that. If you had to focus, what would be the first 3 physical areas you definitely prioritize to benefit riding during this quarantine time?
First of all, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for taking this quarantine time and working on your fitness as opposed to working on your Netflix or sitting on your sofa and working on eating your refrigerator. So that's what a lot of people are doing right now. So I'm proud of you. I think that's amazing. Definitely endurance is important. So if you are on a self quarantine, I think it's something like a treadmill, enough to keep your heart rate up, to keep your physical fitness. We've all been there. You know, you're on a ride. You picked your bike up a couple of times. You've had to muscle it through some things. You had to maybe hike up some technical terrain to see where the line is going to be, or hike down to the river to see how deep the water is before you cross it, and walk back to the bike, and you're in all your gear and you're like huffing and puffing, you know, and that's a good indication that, you know, maybe a little more cardiovascular workout. You probably have heard I have this challenge course in my backyard. Not everybody has the space for that, I understand, but I'm a strong believer that it's best to train for what it is you're training for by doing what it is you want to do. For instance, if I want to train to be more fit riding, the best thing, in my opinion, is to ride. So I could go down to the gym and I could swim and I could lift weights and I could run on the treadmill, and that will help me a bit if I'm going to be hiking or walking or, you know, picking people's bikes up. But overall, what I found, the best thing that keeps me from getting fatigued while riding, other than breathing and staying relaxed, is riding. You're using muscles when you're riding riding motorcycle. You're using muscles that you don't normally use. So I don't know if we've been without riding for a while, and then you get on the bike and you go out for a day, and then the next morning you're like, oh, kind of hurts like right here and right here, because it's difficult to prepare for riding. So if possible, I recommend riding, even if that means you're going to go out, you're going to do some figure eights for an hour because you don't have the space. I think that that's great. Nonstop, just get on the bike and just get riding. But cardiovascular would be my next guess. So your heart, keeping your endurance up. Thank you.
All right, guys, we just have 15 more minutes, so I'll be closing the chat box for now. We won't be entertaining any more questions, but the pending questions that are already in the chat box, Jocelyn will be more than willing to answer those. So let me just close the chat box for everyone. Next question is from Priyanka. She says, hey Jocelyn, I've finally gotten around to hitting dirt with my KTM 390 adventure bike. I'm still struggling with traveling downhill while preventing weight bearing on the handlebar. Sharp twisties add to the nervousness. Any drills or exercises do you combat that hammer grip down going downhill?
Yeah, this is a real deal. We've all been there. I've been there. So as you see in this picture on the left, I'm coming down off a bridge on my course. And how do you keep from all your weight being on that front, on the handlebars? So one of the things you've probably heard people say, when you're gonna go on a steep descent, you wanna get your weight back. Why? Because you wanna get your weight off that front end, because you don't want that front end pushing. You definitely don't wanna wash out the front end while going downhill. That's just a mess all the way through. So how? Well, if you can pinch the tank and get your weight back, that's key, that's great. You're in control, you're not falling forward. If you can't, here's some exercises. So let's take a look at the picture on the left. That's a short descent, let's call it the bridge. You may have something near where your riding area that you could do that's just a nice short bump, maybe a motocross track where they have a tabletop. Go ahead, get on your bike, and as you start down the downhill on the descent, do what we call a trail stop. Just stop the bike and balance it. See, practice it until you can balance the bike at a full stop for a good 2 or 3 seconds. 1001, 1002, 1003, and then go. You're probably going, what the, she's crazy. I know, it took me a while to get there, but what will happen is you'll find that your balance point is not all pushed on your handlebars. Your balance point is back a bit where you can hold the bike still. So it's a tricky and really I'm struggling trying to answer your question because it's easier for me to show you than to explain it. But basically I'm going to say believe in yourself. Continue riding downhill, be aware of what you're doing, practice getting back off those handlebars. I would be surprised if when you've got all that weight on the front end, if you're not looking down right in front of the bike, because that sometimes happens. So get your head up, look up, let the bike go down the hill and relax. Before you know it, you'll be throttling down the hill and adding more speed because your confidence will be there. Some of the things that we talked about earlier will help you get that confidence to get off those handlebars. That's exhausting when you do a lot of that on your arms. You should feel, when you do a lot of downhill on your bike, you know, by the end of the day, you should feel like your quads burning, not your shoulders, neck, and arms hurting. Thank you for the question.
Next question, I reckon everyone can relate to. It's from Kelly from Costa Rica. I have been practicing a lot and it's just frustrating, the whole process of learning, falling, getting back on your feet again. How do you deal with this feeling of not getting the results immediately?
Kelly from Costa Rica, thank you for joining and thank you for your question. I'm gonna tell you, I've been there. I'm gonna tell you guys, I've had tears in my helmet because I was so frustrated, because I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. One day I remember training when I was trying to figure this all out. I picked my bike up 27 times in one day. You don't realize it, but you're getting better. You are getting better. It's a big elephant, and we're taking little bites. And we've been eating this for a whole day, and we've finished this much, and it's still a big elephant. But just keep at it. It's a breakthrough. It didn't happen overnight that I could ride these bikes. It took a little bit of work. But then all of a sudden you break through this wall and you have this aha moment. When you get it, you'll know it. And when you know it, send me a message so that I know you've gotten there. And before you know it, you're not afraid anymore. And everything becomes so much easier. let me give you an example. Let's just talk about street riding. Let's just talk about, nice curvy roads, winding the canyon, street riding. Do you remember when you first got your first motorcycle and you're following your buddies and they're whipping through these tight corners and you're just like, oh, crap, 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 crap. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my gosh. And oh, I'm braking, I'm scared. And it was always fear with every corner, like, oh, okay, you're trying to keep up and you're scared and you're talking to yourself out loud in your helmet. Okay. But now riding, you make the corners, once you've gotten to that point, it's like dancing. You're just like, can I go any faster? And these guys are holding me up, it's just like, oh, look at the scenery. It becomes easier. It's the same thing with the technical off-road riding. Don't give up. Believe in yourself. Remember, confidence, attitude, balance. You need that attitude. Don't let go of it. I promise you, if you stick with it, it will get easier. You are getting better. You just feel like you're not. Believe in yourself. You're the boss of the bike. Before you know it, you'll find that breakthrough. And when you get there, it's the most amazing feeling. You can look at crazy technical terrain with this is yesterday, 20 riders sitting there looking at this thing going, oh crap. You're like, I'll go first. Because it becomes so easy and so fun, just like the street riding. Great question. Thank you. Uh-oh, I lost audio.
Uh, yeah,
There
Steve.
you are.
Steve wants to ask. My girlfriend and I recently acquired our 1200 GS and our 1200 GSA, 1250 GSA. We come from a road racing background. We don't have much off-road experience at all, and we both aren't quite sure how to tackle the steering and especially the braking off-road. Where do we begin in building better steering and braking skills off-road?
Well, Steve, first of all, you got a good girlfriend, so hang on to her because I loved when I hear about couples that ride together. That's great. They say couples that play together stay together. So congratulations. Um, Unfortunately, you have some unlearning to do. It's great that you road raced. I road raced too, but I had to take everything I learned from road racing, almost everything, and just forget it because it's a whole different beast, off-road riding. On that, we probably, leaning in, and then off-road riding, we're be careful of the front brake and we're leaning out. So it's kind of going to be difficult for you. You have an extra challenge, you and your woman there, to undo everything that you're doing. So what I would suggest for you is go into this off-road thing with a big open mind. Everything you've learned for street riding, because this is completely different, and be open to how the bike is going to respond with different ways. You're going to use a lot more rear brake. You're going to, like the photo on the bottom, you're going to be balancing more. I definitely recommend you get some training. Both of you go together to a training facility, a class. Yacht Tours has some great training, and spend some time learning the fundamentals. Once you get that foundation, then you can build up on that and it will be so much easier. But yeah, road racing is great. I think it's awesome, but it definitely is completely different from riding off-road. So I'm excited for you guys with your new bikes. You're gonna have some amazing adventures. I hope you share some photos and stories.
All right, last four questions to you, Jocelyn, because we're running actually out of time. Krishnadas, he wants to ask you, in your first slide, when you're standing on your left leg, balancing the bike, what do you do to stop the bike from tipping over the other side?
Okay, we don't have that photo open, but what I call that is the dog on the fire hydrant, and I told you about. The bike isn't going to tip over because the bike is at balance point. So if you remember the exercise where you're going to go around the bike with one hand all the way around the bike, you can hold it with one finger. You can hold, this 550-pound motorcycle with one finger because it's in balance. So in that photo, I am completely off the bike so I can get my foot flat-footed, my left foot down, and I've got the seat kind of cradled in my knee area, under my underside of my knee, and I'm holding the bike. I think someone had done a video on YouTube. There's a video on my YouTube where I'm live demonstrating that, and I didn't realize they were recording it. So it's just a bunch of people in someone's iPhone, but you'll see where I do that, and I'm in complete control because the bike is in balance. So if you feel like you're going to lose the bike and it's going to tip over, it's not in balance. When it's in balance, it can almost just sit by itself. So that's the key. So remember, and the bike is still perfectly in balance. Great question. Thank you.
All right, Sue wants to ask you, hi Jocelyn, many thanks for the tips and tricks. While riding the panniers and top box on 1250 GSA and a pillion over loose gravel or sandy roads in turns and declines, how to go about it?
So you're telling me you've got a fully loaded bike and you've got a passenger and you're going through sand? You're my hero. So how do you go about it? You know, if you've got all that going on, you've got a heavy bike, it's heavy. Now, this is the good news though. With all that weight on the back, it's keeping the front end a little bit lighter, and you want a light front end when you're going through the sand, so bonus. But you got to be on point with everything that you're doing because you have a lot more weight that you're working with. You know, maybe letting the tire pressure out isn't an option because once you guys get through the sand, you got to continue on the road or street or rocks. So if it's a short, technical, sandy area that has high risk, I might ask my passenger to please walk to the other side of the sand. I don't mind if I'm going to go down in the sand and I'm going to get my legs under the box and I'm going to have the bike on top of me, but I certainly don't want to take my passenger with me. So one of the important things to successful adventure riding is to assess the risk. What's the risk? I like risk, don't get me wrong. But if it's a high risk, maybe there's a better way for us to do this. So, and if I have a passenger, it depends. If I like the passenger on the back, then you know, I definitely don't want anyone getting hurt. So there's no good way to go about it except to be on point. The same thing, you want to stay relaxed, but now you've got someone else on the back and you have luggage on the back that's kind of responding as the bike gets kind of wiggly, and that definitely, you know, makes it more challenging. One thing you can do if you're going through the sand with your passenger, all your gear, and the bike tends to get off balance and it starts doing that kind of fishtail or we're going to go down, don't laugh, this works. Wiggle your hips really fast, like wiggle really quickly, almost like gyros with your back and straightens it out and through you go. Just wiggle and dance. You'll see, the more the bike shakes, you shake it back and it just kind of comes back to itself and goes through. So, but yeah, you're my hero for a fully weighted bike with a passenger in the sand. Good job.
All right, Michael, he wants to ask you, is disabling the kickstand kill switch an option you have considered? That was, you can ride forward to gain stability and then bring the kickstand up.
That's a great question. And it's funny, but I've been asked that a lot. My answer is no, absolutely not. That, in my opinion, is a safety switch that's in place for a good reason, because someone made a mistake. I've seen adventure riders that have them, maybe it's broken, it's not working, and I've watched them take off in a class with a kickstand down. These are difficult bikes to ride as they are, and there's enough challenges off-road as it is. Let's not add something sticking out on the side that you forget to put back up. Let's not have, you know, other things causing us more problems. So no, I I really want to make sure that my kickstand is up and put away before I go. And I think that's a safety that I probably will never disable. Again, to each their own. That's completely up to you. But for me, no, I would prefer it to be there. But
All
thank
right.
you for your question.
Very last question. Ajay wants to ask you that, like he does adventure touring. So during the touring, adventure touring, do you recommend a foot pump or an electric inflator?
So I've used both. Um, and now currently, like I have in my pack here for today's ride, cartridges. So the electric inflator is great if you don't mind, digging out and getting to the battery, or maybe you have a quick lead, but it's kind of bulky. It takes up some important space. And if I'm going on a long ride, I need all the space I can get. The foot pump or the hand pump, that's just exhausting. If I'm pumping up the tire manually, I'm already tired because I already had a flat tire and I already had to maybe deal with the bike. I already had to fix the flat, change the tube, patch the tire, whatever I'm doing, ream it and get the tire snake in. And I'm exhausted already. The last thing I want to do is sit here and hand pump or foot pump this thing. It may sound silly, but like I want to conserve my energy as much as possible. So I like the cartridges. They're small. You can get a 4-pack of them. The cartridge container that it goes on is very compact. I think it takes maybe a quarter to half as much room as the battery operated one. And then a quick psh, and your tire's up and full and off you go. I also like them. For instance, we've had a bike that's had such a dented rim and we didn't have a tube. And we can't seem to get this tire to bead. But with the cartridges, you can put so much pressure in the tire that you can at least get out of the woods. And it's helped us in the past. Whereas I'm not so sure about sitting here and hand pumping this thing. So that's my preference, but it's really going to be preference. It's what you prefer. They all work. They're all great. And they're all very important to have when riding off-road. And if you're not using it for your bike, you're most likely going to be using it for someone else's bike. And you have a friend for life because they're so grateful that you ride prepared. So thank you for your questions. I'm super bummed. I would stay here all day and answer everyone's question if they'd let me. And I feel bad that I can't.
Jocelyn, there are so many questions regarding, training programs in US and Canada, Costa Rica. So the participants, they're asking that when you're gonna come to their country or to South Africa. So would it be more perfect if they connect with you on your Instagram handle just given over here, and you can maybe answer them with the next programs that are coming in US, Canada, and so on?
Please do. Please do. I want to continue the conversation. I'd love to answer all the questions. And a question might pop up next week when you start practicing some of the things we suggested earlier. And I want you to be able to ask me. So don't hesitate. It may take me a while to answer you or respond, but I will respond regardless, whether it's the Facebook or Instagram. And as far as training, um, it's my goal to get out to everywhere, and I want to share what I've learned with all of you because I've been where you have been or are now. I've been scared, I've been intimidated, and I've been frustrated. That's a real thing, and you can overcome it because I did. And size doesn't matter. So remember, confidence, attitude, and balance.
Jocelyn, we have been getting a few requests. They want to know the story behind your fingers, the story of fingers.
This one?
Yeah. Do you have time to share the story? It's a cool one.
Okay. This finger here, which doesn't straighten up anymore, I can kind of push it, but it doesn't stay. It's like that. This was a road racing accident. Well, I mentioned to you when I was road racing that at the time I was sometimes I was the only female. very few times. There was maybe 2 of us. So back then, it was kind of a thing. The guys were like, they see a ponytail hanging on a helmet, and they tend to be more aggressive and maybe make some passes that they wouldn't normally make if it was just another guy rider in front of them. Unfortunately, that's the truth. So a rider was making a pass where they really shouldn't have, was in a good spot. And we didn't really fit. It was a very tight left-hander. And they came into my bike and hit me as we were in the corner. When that happened, their bike hitting my right leg caused me to press my brake lever fully, my rear brake pedal, which then caused my bike to slide out, their bike to slide out, and the 2 of us to head down the pavement. It was kind of like a big sandwich. It was like my hand, then my bike, then me, then his bike, then him, and down the pavement we went for a long ways. And we stopped, and once the shock wore off, I looked, and at the time, women's riding gloves were these very thin, they call them like passenger gloves, they call them. They're like driving gloves for a car. We didn't have those rugged race gloves with all the protection and double stitching and everything. And since then I worked with Alpine Stars, and they built a women's race glove, and then other companies kind of came on and started doing that. So I had these very thin Kushatani driving gloves, and I looked down, and the glove was torn away, and there was a little tendon. All right, this is graphic, so anyone that wants to log out, no offense. There was a little tendon hanging, and hanging from the tendon was my fingernail, like the end of my finger. And I just was like staring at it. I remember going, oh my gosh, what the heck? And all of a sudden the medics came, and they rolled this thing up into a big cotton ball. It looked like a soccer ball in the end of my hand. And it was bleeding through the thing. And oh my gosh. So off to a surgeon I went. And I went to this hand doctor in Fresno, California. He was amazing, Dr. Galley. And he looked at it, and he's like, I think I could save it. And he says, but there's going to be some choices to make, during the surgery. So I opted to stay awake and watch. So while he was working on the hand, he tried to connect the tendon to the end of the finger to make it work, and it just kept snapping. There wasn't enough. He stacked 2 pieces of bone and a bunch of screws and some safety wire and a figure 8 to make this fused finger. As he was getting ready to fuse it, he goes, you have an option. We can remove it, or we can fuse it. And I thought, well, if we remove it, that's not going to give me, if I use 2 fingers on the clutch, now I use 1 finger, but at the time I used 2 fingers, that gives me 1 finger on top to hang and a thumb to hang on the bottom. And I thought, oh, this isn't going to work. So he said, well, when we fuse them, if we don't take it off, we can fuse it. But when we fuse women's fingers, we fuse them straight, so you can show off your ring. And so I thought about how that's going to be riding a motorcycle with my fingers sticking out. I'm like, no, that's not going to work. But wait, in the waiting room is my friend. And in his truck is a set of Scott waffle grips. If you don't mind, he can go get them and give them to you. And perhaps you could fuse my finger in the shape of a grip. And he's like, okay, we can do it. And they did. They brought in the Scott waffle grip, and they put it in a Ziploc bag, and they wrapped my hand around it, and they fused it in the shape of the grip. So it is actually my strongest finger. I think I could hang from this, and so it helps me hang on. I don't recommend you go lose a finger to help you hang on, but that's a true story, and that's how it went down.
Great. That's great. Jocelyn, one thing I just want to ask you, a friend asked me earlier that does the equipment actually affect the balance? And like the tank bag, does it affect for the shorter riders while balancing it?
It depends on the tank bag, and it depends on the bike, the tank. So sometimes I can ride with a tank bag, and a lot of times I do, and it doesn't bug me at all. It's not in my way. But certain bikes, and certain tank bags are a problem. Yes, because I mean, it's such a reach to get to the bars, and I feel like we ride pretty upfront and on the tank, and that bag is just in the way. So today, I've opted to leave the tank bag out. I'm riding my Rally 1200, and I have a tail bag. So I have a tail bag on the back to have the things like, necessary, my spot locator and my first aid kit and tools, and I keep them on the tail bag to keep it out of the way. But surprisingly, there's some bikes, some tanks, and some tank bags that work, but it's really going to be each to their own. That's a great question. I always suggest, put it on the bike and take it for a spin around the block before you go on your big ride, because there's nothing more frustrated than when you get on the big ride and immediately you go, oh my gosh, why do I have this thing? It's in the way. I wish I wouldn't have brought it. Always do a pre-run before the big run.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Jocelyn, for this for attending the webinar, and I'm sure all the participants must be very overwhelmed with your answers and the Q&A. So we hope to have you soon over here with us in India to train all the riders. And after this pandemic thing that just gets over, then we would really appreciate if you just come to India and train the riders over here.
It would be an honor to come over and ride with you guys. I would so enjoy that. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your time. And thank you for everybody that jumped on board. I appreciate it.
Perfect, perfect. So thank you, participants, for joining in. You'll have the recording for the webinar on YouTube link provided. We have already shared you the Instagram handles for Jocelyn. So if you have any more questions, please do connect with her on our Instagram and Facebook page. Thanks a lot for joining in.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.